Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. It's Andrea Gordon. I'm here as your host for Realizations. This is the podcast where we talk about everything real estate related. And today I'm very happy to have, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Is it Meir?
Meir.
Meir Nemetsky with me from Los Angeles, California. Meir is an agent and he's doing it his own way. He's what I would call a rugged iconoclast, and we will talk with him about exactly that. So welcome to the show, Meir.
Thank you. A rugged iconoclast. I haven't heard that one before.
Well, there you go. You're going it on your own and you're going to do it your way. That's, and so this is another way that somebody can get into this business and do this work. Meir is on his own through a company called Power Brokers. And when you work at a very large company, like say I'm with Compass, they will take a certain portion of your commission. They will also charge you probably some sort of resource fee, which is the overall arching company. And they will also charge you for your transaction services. They will also have a little bit of a profit sector in a marketing department, which can be pricey. And so a lot of people make choices to go to companies like Side, or in his case, Power Brokers, where the costs are way low. And do you have like a flat fee situation where you sell a certain amount of real estate and then you don't pay them anymore? Or is it a small percentage per transaction? How does that work for you?
It's a small percentage. I guess I'm going to end up doing a commercial here for Power Brokers.
Yeah.
And our beat is a great man and he can thank me later. Broker over there. It's on the first 20,000 of commission per deal. It's a flat fee of $695. It's 3% of the remainder. I just did a deal where the commission was in excess of 100,000, and that calculation came out to like $3,000 or something like that.
So it's very inexpensive. And this is good for people who are very, very secure working for themselves, who don't want the big name brand in back of them when they go into listing appointments, what have you. You have to really plan well to be an agent in this circumstance, because you have to know your business really, really well. Meir is telling me that he's able to meet with his broker all the time, which is fantastic. But you also need to know enough to know when you don't know something, which is a tough thing sometimes. Real estate can be very, very complicated. And knowing when you need to get an attorney involved or your broker involved or your manager involved is a very, very important part of our work, because you don't want any liability. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. And you also want to obviously give the very best service for your clients. You know, it feels really terrible when you have a problem with a client and you have to say to them, I think you need to seek the help of a qualified California real estate attorney. But that is actually doing the very best thing you possibly can do for your clients in that circumstance. And the problem is a lot of people don't know when they are in that circumstance. So if you are self-assured and aware of the business, for example, Meir's been doing this now since 2014 as a realtor. And prior to that, he was a mortgage broker. So I'm going to guess he has a very good understanding of the rules and regulations around real estate. And I'm also going to guess that Power Brokers provides you with errors and omission insurance.
Yeah, of course.
What do they charge for that?
It's all built into the same flat fee. Not flat fee, I should say calculation. The commission calculation that I gave you is the only thing I pay. Anything else that I need, I can do on my own or I can outsource. And I think it's great because you already touched upon the financial savings of this type of structure. But what I think is even, in some ways, even more attractive, and it's not exclusive to this business model, but it's certainly more prevalent, is that I curate the people that I work with. So if you're a Compass, like you mentioned you are, So they try to nudge you in the direction of Chartwell, and there's nothing wrong with Chartwell. I've worked with them plenty of times when the agent on the other side is from Compass. But I love my escrow officer, and she charges $1 per thousand, which is roughly half the price. And when I tell my clients that not only am I going to give them a rate that's half of what their friends are paying, but this is the single best escrow officer I've ever worked with in over 100 transactions. Well, it's because there's no undue pressure or influence being placed on me to pick someone from the team. I can pick whoever I like.
Oh, no, that's fine. One of the things I would say is that we have a lot of autonomy around that as well. Like, for example, Compass's title company is not even present in Northern California. So we don't immediately go to them. I've been doing real estate as an agent for 27 years and have done over 1,000 transactions. And I've tended to work with the same people over and over and over again at title, because you just develop a rhythm with people so they know who you are, what you need, what have you. And, my escrow officer will pick up her phone at 10 o'clock at night for me if I need her to.
That's what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the sorts of relationships that you really want to establish and work towards as an agent. Now, the other thing that was really curious to me in talking to you briefly before we started this is that you serve an incredibly small geographical area. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, the first time I was ever invited on a podcast, and it's not like I've been to many, this is probably my second or third, but I was a little nervous because I think the person who was hosting the podcast saw my price point, and their podcast was named Luxury Real Estate. And I thought they were going to ask me a whole bunch of questions about how do I brand myself in the upper echelons of the market. And I have no problem talking about it. I just really didn't want to disappoint her audience. It's very, very simple and unglamorous. I am part of a very tight-knit religious community. That doesn't just mean that we stick up for and help each other. Of course, that's true. That's across the board in all fields of life. But specifically in real estate, everybody's got to be within walking distance of the synagogue.
Yes, I've dealt with that with Orthodox Jews in my life before.
Exactly. So the people who I'm most likely to interact with on like a first handshake basis are the people that I see myself face to face on a regular basis. And so they all have to live, within 1 mile of where we pray, which is also within 1 mile of where I live. I live 3 blocks from the synagogue. Then obviously it expands to some degree as they refer you to their clientele, but it's almost concentric circles, because it's like, okay, the people most likely to be their friends are people who are within walking distance to them. They just happen to be at a different synagogue. So expanded 1/10 of a mile,
Right.
Another 1/10 of a mile. And then, yes, of course, this year I expanded as far as I ever have. I did a deal in Laverne, which is like out by Claremont, almost 2 hours away from my house.
Right.
I had an escrow in the valley that just fell through, and I'm doing one in the other Orthodox Jewish community about 4 miles from here. But it's not something that, sort of how I accidentally fell into real estate, which is another story, is also how my clientele carved itself out. Same thing.
Right.
It's all,
And I think that happens really for everybody. Like in your particular case, it's your religion and your faith and basically your community. And that's what happens for everybody in real estate, whoever your community is. Like I'm a theater person. I write plays, I direct plays. I have been doing that in the area for over 40 years at this point. And so a lot of my clientele are people that are connections through either universities or different projects that I've been involved with over the years. And you find your natural people. That's really it. That's part of what these big monolithic companies like Zillow and Realtor.com don't quite understand in a weird way when they send out these lead generation type things. They're bypassing your very best source of potential business, which is the community that you naturally exist within. Because there's a shorthand there when you're talking to somebody. Like, I am sure that when you're talking with somebody from your synagogue, you all have a whole common set of beliefs, ethics, morals, ideas, what have you. There are variations, of course, within that, but at the same time, there's like a shorthand, so you don't have to invent the wheel every single time you meet somebody. like when you get sent a very cold lead from Zillow, and like I got a lead the other day from someone who was wanting a house in Monterey. I'm in Berkeley, California. Berkeley is roughly 112 miles away from Monterey. I don't serve that area at all, but Zillow doesn't know that because their AI isn't focused enough to understand those kinds of things. When AI gets better and when I think that they will be able to lead gen better and get more specific in what they send you. But otherwise, it's just a waste of time for everybody. That person didn't want me. If I don't know where anything is in Monterey. So how can I really help that person if I'm driving around in Monterey and, it just doesn't make any sense. So really local community is very, very important. Now, in a community like yours, what's an average price point?
I would say it really basically divides into two halves. Well, I would say three parts, three regions that are all still within walking distance. The least expensive, probably a functional starter house, is about right around 1.9 or 2. In the middle one, I would say the range for a functional starter house is 2.2 to 2.3 if it's fancy, all the way up to 2.5. We're talking about a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Right.
Then in roughly, let's say 1,800, 1,900 square feet. And then in the most expensive part of the neighborhood, which is in the homeowners association, on the more prized blocks, it's about $1 million a bedroom at this point.
Yeah. And our area too, the median house price in Berkeley is 1.2 million. And so you have a lot of houses that are a lot more expensive than that. And you don't have that many houses that are a lot less expensive than that. And so because these sorts of exclusive enclaves are problematic to me in some ways, because I do believe that the person that delivers your mail, teaches your children, runs the little quarter grocery should be able to live in the neighborhood that they're serving. But it is what it is. You can't really get away from it. And those of you who are listening who are in other states, this is the insanity of the real estate market in California. I was talking with someone out of North Dakota the other day, and she was talking about an expensive house in her neighborhood being $600,000. So the price points in the country are just crazy. And I would be willing to bet you could take that $600,000 house from North Dakota and plunk it into Berkeley, and it would cost $1.8 million or $1.9 million. Just so you had the wonderful accident of fate to be in an area by your synagogue where the price points are fantastic, and you are very blessed to have a community of people that want to work with you very nearby. The one thing I would wonder about in being an individual agent working in that kind of a circumstance is in a way the lack of realtor community. In our area, there are roughly, I don't know, maybe 500 to 1,000 agents, and we all know one another, and different groupings hang out, what have you. I'm older and I've been doing this for so long that I'm not really going to be running off and having drinks with everybody at 5 o'clock on Friday or whatever. But there's a lot of collegiality that occurs and a lot of events. Like one of the well-known mortgage brokers in our area is having a picnic this weekend for Labor Day, but just for realtors by this, park. And I would guess that like 200 people are going to show up there. That sense of community that you develop within the real estate community itself, I guess, are you getting your community fixed just by being part of a larger community of faith?
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't matter what occupation I'd choose. Whether you like it or not, when you live in this part of the world and you choose this lifestyle, you're in the fishbowl. That's what I call it.
Okay.
But it happens to be the relationships with other realtors is not something I take for granted, because one of the offices that I worked in really was about trying to win and undermine your competition and slaughter the other side and everything else.
That's horrible.
And I thought that was like sort of the natural mentality of a real estate professional. And as I graduated from there into other offices and eventually on my own, I learned that I really appreciated the other realtors, because all I had to do was make their lives easy and be nice, and they would do the same for me for the
Right.
most part. I mean, there's a couple of tough guys that,
Yeah.
I don't love when I see their name on the sign, because I know they're just going to, no matter what you do, they're going to try to sell it themselves. And it's a thing is a ruse. But that's the exception rather than the rule. And one of the agents who I think is probably, he's been in this community. We have a lot of overlap. He's 10 years older than me. He's probably been in it 10 years longer than me. Turned out to be one of my best friends. And we've learned later that we share the same birthday. So
That's nice.
yeah,
That's charming.
like a sign from God.
Yeah. No, I love things like that. And honestly, the collegiality of other realtors is something that nobody really thinks about. I mean, we all are reliant upon one another for information, for MLS information, for with multiple listing information, for, knowing when things are coming on the market, knowing what things have sold for. We ask each other an awful lot of questions back and forth. And I think that sort of friendly, basically you have a lot of not close friends, but close acquaintances that happen to be real estate people. I know when people got married. I know when they had a kid. I know how many kids they have, what their kids like to do as far as their sports are concerned. I know a lot of stuff around the realtor community because that's part of what makes life interesting and fun in your job too. And that's the thing. It's like when I hear people going off with companies like Power Broker Inside, you wonder how you get that fix and whether you feel a little bit isolated. I know that for example, during the pandemic at Compass, my wonderful old broker, Michael Schwartz, who's now one of the heads of the agency, a big real estate company that is based out of Los Angeles. You may know some people from there. He was brilliant and wonderful. And he created something called Last Minute Live during the pandemic because we could no longer have office meetings, which were a great place for us to share ideas and share things that were going on and understanding the new regulations that were coming down the pike, et cetera. And Last Minute Live was all on Zoom. And that continues in my office to this day.
It's so nice.
And every single day at 4:00, a group of people, and there's a very close-knit group of about 25 people that meet on that. I used to do it religiously. Now I don't do it. After the pandemic, I kind of stopped and a lot of other people did too. But there's a core group that's like, they also belong to this thing called the 6 a.m.ers. So they wake up at 6:00 and have a coaching session with somebody. Okay. So moving on to how you are navigating through this, I would guess that you are not that affected where you are by the kind of uncertainty and problems that have been occurring in the economy in most areas because it is such a close-knit group. Is that a fair assumption?
That's right. That's right.
That can affect your business?
The interest rates have an impact, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get a little bit more into that. But when you have a mostly, I would consider it like an upscale clientele, well-to-do clientele, that have to be whichever town or city or state they live in has to be in a very, very small geographical radius. And also, to add to that, they have many, many kids. So they're big families. Their housing needs are not just of the most critical need they have, but also consistently expanding. There's turnover. So really, like, this is priority one for them. It's not, it's not housing as a luxury or as an investment. It's housing as a necessity. And they have the means to finance whatever is necessary. The economy may hurt and they may decide to take one less vacation.
Right.
Certainly not going, excuse me, they're certainly not going to, they're not going to put housing, their spouse and 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 children.
My Lord.
The back burner. 7 would be considered unusually large, but 5 is very common. So that's right. So also, my goodness. Also I'm sure in certain coastal areas that are more upscale, they're insulated to some degree.
Yeah.
But I think that's true. I think all of those types of things are true for us on the macro level, and then also for my subgroup of clientele.
Well, you are delightful. I'm glad we finally got together to talk today. And I am wondering if somebody needs to find your services, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, there's not too many Meirs, M-E-I-R. There's certainly even fewer Nemetskys. So NemetskY, just plug it into your search engine or your AI or meirnemetsky.com, any of the above. But I didn't do this primarily as a marketing gimmick. I just really enjoy talking to people. And I feel like that's why this business works for me, because pretty much 90% of my time is spent face to face or on the phone. And people will ask me, they'll meet me and they'll say, "Can you show it tomorrow at 2?" And I'm like, "Sure." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "I'm the only guy who hangs out with friends all day for a living." I'm grateful that you had me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I hope we could stay in touch.
I hope we will too. It's very lovely to meet you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, okay?
You too.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.